Hello and welcome. Thank you so much. I wanted to create something for you and invite you to the Thursday free introduction to the high vibe nutrition class. I hope you'll join me at that. And I wanted to give you a fast introduction here, both to the free webinar and to the 4-series session that we're having. It's called High Vibe Nutrition, and I want to tell you a little bit about why it's so important for me to bring this information to you. So many of you have been working with me for some time. You come to the weekly class and you're part of our biofeedback community. And I've been teaching you biofeedback and natural health for some time. But I've noticed that there is a very important missing piece, which is the high vibe nutrition piece. And part of it is this information was difficult even for me to figure out and get with all of my training. And I've been going at this for 20 years. I started naturopathic college in 1990, the end of 98, 99. So it's really been 20 years now. And even I don't think my school got it right. And I don't think the popular quote unquote health gurus get it right. And it really took a lot of research and stumbling and being fooled some of the time to really figure this out. That then I finally got total clarity on this, you guys. And this is what I'm so excited to share with you because it will really mesh nicely with the work that you're doing in biofeedback. And when I can explain this information to you, the lights will go on about so many things that you're going through, probably in your own personal exploration of nutrition, and so many lights will go on with regard to what's happening to family members. So I think that this will really be important. And it's important to me to share this with you because I talk with so many of you about your health, and I talk to people who have Parkinson's or people who have multiple sclerosis, and they're using the Genius, they're using biofeedback, but I don't see them getting the results that I would like to see them. And I've always said it's a combination of lifestyle and biofeedback. And when you get the lifestyle and the food right, when you have the right information, then the biofeedback can have a greater momentum. It can have a greater effect. It can have a more long-lasting effect. So come to the class tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Consider coming to the 4-part series. It's one of the most important classes that I've ever taught. And it's going to be available in installments. If you go to the webpage, it's easy for everybody to be a part of. So I know you could be making significantly more progress by leaps and bounds if you knew and understood this information. And that's why I'm really taking the time to lay it out with the science, to lay it out clearly. It's things that I've alluded to in the free weekly class, but I really want you to understand this methodically in a fun, clear way. And then these principles are going to become the core foundation for the year-long course that I'm going to be teaching in different topics of natural health. So cardiovascular health, diabetes, Parkinson's, autoimmune conditions, all of these things, we're going to go through them with the Genius, but you'll want to have this information as your core. So that's why I created this class. This class is going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. You're going to be able to learn it and embrace it as much as you want to. We'll have shopping lists and recipes, and I'll give you all the practical information, but I'm also going to be giving you the science of all of this. And it's the science that is not easy to figure out, even if you have access to the internet, believe it or not, even if you have access to YouTube. It's really hard to sort through the information because there are a lot of parties that want your dollar when you're spending money on food and when you're spending money on supplements. And I'm going to help you to cut through all of this in this class to see things clearly. If you It's one thing if you want to self-sabotage, or you don't want to be healthy, or you just don't care. But if you're the kind of person who really wants to be healthy and you're not getting the right information, that's the thing I take exception with. I want to get you that right information, and then you can make a decision about what you want to do based on having at least a level playing field. Start off. When I found out that starches, which we're going to talk about, really are what keep human beings healthy and what we've been consuming for 10,000 years, that changed my life. And when I started to eat foods that were like this, I was really much more satisfied with less food. I finally didn't feel hungry all the time. I felt very satiated. I didn't feel so adrenally fatigued. I had more energy. It just changed my life in so many ways. I want to share this information with you because it can be in stark contrast to what you're hearing about. And I know that you can feel very confused. So join me on Thursday night and join me for the class and become unconfused. So today, even though we have more resources of information, it can feel like it's even more difficult to get objective information. And this is another thing that I really want to help you with. It turns out that food companies have invested millions and millions of dollars into what amounts to junk science research to sell you their products. So when you watch the news, you'll hear, hey, there's a new study that shows that eggs are actually really healthy for you, or you should be eating more butter. These are just ridiculous notions that can cause real harm to people, can cause them to engage in practices that can end up causing them to have breast cancer, can end up causing them to have heart disease, all of these things. And this is because food companies figured out if they could do research studies and rig the research so that it's going to have the outcome that they want. And then the research would be what would get on the news and would convince you that this product would be amazing for you to have more of. And unfortunately, that kind of misleading science can cause you harm. And this is what I want to bring to your attention. We're going to go through it, and it'll be much easier to see how you have been manipulated. And so you can help yourself not to be manipulated by knowing that they exaggerate these findings. They start with the end in mind with these findings. Like, an avocado might be good for you, but an entire avocado and the amount of avocados that people are eating now is not really that great, you guys. Because one avocado has 30 grams of fat. It's pure fat. And we're going to talk more about the implications of this. So in the 80s, food companies discovered that they could do lots and lots of this type of research. They could pay universities to do the research for them, and they could really convince you of anything. So you're going to see on the news, hey, there's a new report out that shows that so-and-so thing would be great for you. And you hear it and you feel a level of comfort. Well, I guess I should be going out and consuming this particular thing. So it turns out that today food companies are responsible for about 70% of the studies that are published about food in places like the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. There are some good studies, but you guys, I'm going to teach you how to be cautious and skeptical. If you hear something like in 2014 on the cover of Time magazine, it said, hey, butter is back, it's good for you, we discovered something so different, you want to just ask yourself, does that make sense? Eating something that's pure saturated fat would really be good for me? And this is something I'm going to walk you through. It turns out the fat you eat is the fat you wear. And we're going to go through a lot of this, and it's going to help you to make really informed choices. So when you hear something that just doesn't make sense, even though you kind of want to believe it, be very skeptical. It's very likely that there's industry funding behind it. And it turns out when you dig deep into this, there was a meeting of the minds in the dairy industry that came together at one of their conventions and had this very methodical desire to get some studies done that would show this, and the information was very, very skewed and very, very inaccurate. And what they ended up was with the study that somebody like Time Magazine could take and run with. And people would love to pick up this magazine because they want to hear that butter could be good for them. Butter is filled with fat and it's salty, and that satisfies a lot of things that in our brain produce dopamine. So when there's something fatty or something salty, things like that, they produce more dopamine in our brain. That's why junk food can call to us and why we often find ourselves overeating it. Once you start, it's hard to stop because your brain is getting a lot of satisfaction out of it. It's also confusing because there's a lot of health gurus online, and these health gurus need something to do. They need to always be rolling out new information, rolling out a new product, rolling out something they want to lure you to participate in. And so the more spectacular, the more crazy the claim is, the more you're likely to watch it or be intrigued by it. It would be okay if it was just a spectator sport. Unfortunately, it's something that might cause you to do something really harmful. And that's what I really want to help you with, because I see people making some harmful choices that I know will have very negative implications for their health. And I think if I can teach you the principles, you can be the one who decides, no, I don't think I'm going to go there. So I want you to be aware of foods and nutrition that will support the highest functioning of your cells. We talked about this being high vibe nutrition. When you eat this way, you are a wonderful vessel to receive radiant light, to receive photonic light, to receive the energy of the genius of biofeedback, to receive coherent energy. You're much more receptive to it energetically. And these are also foods that will keep you very satisfied and satiated. So what's being shown here is some delicious pasta with some tomatoes, and basically it's a vegan dish. There's no cheese or meat. It's just the tomato sauce in there. And this is something that is incredibly satisfying. And if it looks like comfort food, it's because this is your food. Starches are foods that human beings have eaten for the last 10,000 years as part of the growth of civilization. And they have an immense amount of nutrition that you do not want to deprive your body of. And we'll talk more about that. So even though I searched earnestly for the truth, I did not always find it. A lot of my colleagues in the naturopathic world follow and encourage people to do paleo and low carb and FODMAP and keto. And I just have to speak honestly. I want everybody in our tribe, in our community, to be very, very healthy, to be getting the most from biofeedback, and to be able to share this information with other people. So it took a long time to get clarity and certainty. Even as a naturopathic doctor, this can be confusing. So I have some incredible information to share with you, and life is about to get a lot better if you didn't know this information or were not following a starch-centered diet. Starch is good for you. I know you've heard that starch is gloppy and it's a gooey mess, but the starch that is in natural foods is starch that contains vitamins and minerals and fiber that keeps us extremely satisfied and healthy. And the lower in fat it is, the better for you. This isn't like a low fat or a skim deal. There's actually fat in rice. There's fat in potatoes, but only a very small amount. That's all that we need. Look around you. Do you see anybody around you who looks like they have a fat deficiency? I certainly don't see it in most of the places that I go. I see people more who have a fat excess, and I see food companies that have tried to convince you that you have some type of a fat deficiency so that you will consume more avocados, more nuts, more seeds, more butter, more whole fat, whatever it might be. And these excessive amounts of fat only cause harm, unfortunately. So I want to share with you 3 important things that I've learned about nutrition, weight, and food that I think you will find startling and exciting to learn about. The first one, that sounds obvious, but when I heard it for the first time, it hit me like a thunderbolt because I had been really eating a lot of raw foods. I had been eating a lot of raw vegan foods, and I was, tried everything to be healthy, you guys. I earnestly, sincerely wanted to be healthy, but I was eating vegan foods. I was eating coconut oil. I was eating olive oil. I was eating lots of nuts and seeds, and wondering why, weight and life wasn't really progressing in the way that I wanted it to. And it turns out the fat you eat is the fat you wear. Let's find out more about that. Maybe you've heard that it goes from your lips to your hips, and it turns out physiologically that is actually true. And because these food companies have been so successful in marketing to us and doing these ridiculous studies that we have all these fatty acid deficiencies and we need more oil and we need more olive oil, there's been this is unbelievable, you guys, from 1970 till today, there has been a 57% increase in the amount of fats and oils consumed in the United States. If you guys remember, anybody remember something, a hit series from the 70s called Emergency? I just wanted to bring this picture up because if you ever go back and watch these episodes, these guys were thin. Like everybody in the 70s was thin. And it was just around the 80s that they started to do these food studies and snacking became more popular. And look what happened. So this is 1985, and you can't see this too clearly, but it's about the dark blue is 15 to 18%. You got a lot of white in here. We didn't have data then, but you still see a lot of blue, right? And then in 1995, we do have data, and we see that we start moving a lot of people into the 15 to 19%. That's just borderline of being obese. Now, this is stunning. We move into 2005, and then we see 20 to 24. So we see overweight and obese starting to become the majority. And then it's even more shocking where you see all of this red and then over 30% BMI in some of these states. It's heartbreaking, really. And the processed food companies are, I believe, responsible for this because they get the information out to the news, they get the information out to the media, they get it out to like the Dr. Oz's of the world, the Mark Hymans of the world, and they give you a lot of food propaganda that causes you to make decisions that ultimately harm you. Okay, so, and this is really sad because this is what has happened to our kids and happening to the adults too. So the fat you eat is the fat you wear. And we're going to cover a little bit more of why that is. So your body has no satiety mechanism when consuming fat. And I know that seems crazy because I've heard some of the quote unquote health gurus say, oh, fat's what satisfies you. But we literally have no mechanism in our brain and in our system to be satiated by fat. So you could consume a very fatty meal and literally still feel hungry afterwards. So you can consume some meat, you could consume, some type of fatty meal with that, and if you don't have some type of starch with that meal, you will likely still feel hungry even after consuming maybe a very high quantity of fat and a high quantity of calories, because fat and oil is very calorie rich. And you can have a very small amount. It really doesn't even increase the amount in your stomach, because part of how you feel full is through the stretch receptors in your stomach, feeling all of that fiber and vegetables and things like that that really expand the stomach. Well, starch foods also give you a lot of satiety. Your body is hardwired to look for that level of satisfaction. Your body wants glucose. During the day, 20% of your total calories go to the energy used by your brain, and your brain preferentially uses glucose. There's no doubt about it. We've done this for so long, This is the history of humanity, is that we've run on glucose and our bodies want potatoes, sweet potatoes, rice, quinoa, oatmeal, corn. When you hear those foods and you look at the picture, please let me know if your mouth does not water. I mean, mine does, and that's because this is your food. This is the food you were meant to eat. This is the food that gives your body the vitamins, the minerals, all the nutrition that human beings need, and makes you feel incredibly satisfied, gives you lots of energy to do the things that you want. So fat is extremely easy to overeat. Your body will not tell you if you've had enough. We just don't have a satiety mechanism for fat, but your body is hardwired for dopamine. So if you eat, you get a reward. That's how we survived. If you didn't get a reward from eating, you might not eat and you might starve to death. So we've been hardwired by the creator to get a reward for eating. So the more fat you consume, the greater the reward. This is why a bag of potato chips that's filled with fat and salt too also creates this effect. And so we get this really high dopamine rush, and it's almost impossible to control yourself because you're getting so much dopamine being secreted in the brain. How can you stop? And the food companies have spent millions and millions of dollars to make these processed foods as hyper palatable so that you will eat more of them. And as sad and immoral as that is the truth. So food companies have taken advantage. They've created this hyper palatable food, and you don't want to keep these types of foods in your home. Just get them out of your home, because if you eat one, you're probably going to eat the entire bag or box or whatever it is. I don't keep them in my home. So historically, in human evolution, fat was a commodity that was very rare, that we stumbled upon occasionally. It was like, wow, this amazing thing that we could take into our bodies. And if we were starving some months down the road, we could use up that fat. So you can store fat endlessly. It was meant to help us to survive. And when you consume fats, they get easily converted to actual fat. The conversion is almost automatic. It literally goes from your lips to your hips. This is the biochemical reality of what happens. And so if you think about it, if you really want to be slim and trim, think of people in China or in Japan. Yes, they eat lots of rice, right? That's something that's in an Asian home. I mean, they are cooking rice every day, and they're going to consume like good quantities, a nice substantial bowl of rice, but there's no fat, there's no butter, there's no oil that goes on the rice. You know what I mean? They'll probably have it with a broth and a little bit of tofu, miso, something like that. So starches keep us trim. Fat makes you fat. Choose foods that have low amounts of fat, and you will get trim and healthy, and the circulation and energy flow and the photonic energy of your body will be much higher. So when you consume starches, it's actually difficult to lose weight. Starches, when I say starches, I mean whole food starches. I don't mean Rice Krispies or donuts or muffins. I'm not talking about any of those foods. I'm talking about real whole foods: potatoes, rice, millet, quinoa, pasta, oatmeal. These are starches. And when you consume starches without added fat, so you don't put a lot of Alfredo sauce and so forth on them, then you will not gain weight, because it has to be converted to fat by something called de novo lipogenesis. So carbohydrates, despite what you've heard, despite what you hear still on TV, just biochemically, starches do not easily convert into fat. Just biochemically, fat converts to fat. But starches will take about 28% of the energy that you consumed to convert them. So 28% of the energy that you actually took in will be used up in trying to convert them to fat. So when you consume starches, they will get converted to glycogen, but they will not easily get converted to fat. So while some people might say to themselves, well, starches, they do make me gain weight. That could be the water of glycogen, but it's because most people really don't consume a low-fat diet. The average percentage for most Americans is somewhere between 25 to 35% fat or more. And we're talking about a plan that's about 10% fat. It's a huge reduction because as you get filled with starches, you will not need that fat to make you feel full or to make you that you feel that you've got enough calories, or you won't be eating it because you think you're doing something so you won't have a fatty acid deficiency. And there are some kind of ridiculous things here that says the health benefits of avocado. It prevents bad breath. It aids in maintaining healthy skin. It protects the liver. These are all kind of silly claims, you guys, about avocados. You could also get this from like carrots and eating fresh fruits and vegetables, eating a healthy diet. So we're gonna get into this and really dig into some of the folklore and things that are being manufactured about fats. So when you consume starches, it's moved mostly to glycogen. You burn much of it off through movement. It even takes energy, so you use some to convert the starch to glycogen. Now, when people go on a paleo diet or they go on a keto diet, then they do use up this glycogen that has been stored in their body. It's a stored form of calories. It's not the same as fat, though. If you've ever heard of carb loading before a race, they're building up glycogen in their system in order to have all the energy they need to win the race. So when people go on a low carb diet, they lose that water weight and they lose the water and they feel like, oh my gosh, my tummy is slender, but they're going to end up gaining it back because you need starches to feel full, and eventually your willpower will give out on a low carb plan. And hopefully you haven't sacrificed your health by then. So eat starches every day to stay healthy. And these are starches. They're from real food. So eat more potatoes. Who doesn't want to eat more potatoes? It's just that you're not going to be putting sour cream and butter and things like that on your potatoes. You might air fry them or bake them. I do a lot of mine in the Instant Pot, and I mix them with other vegetables, or sometimes I mix them with a lot of diced tomatoes. Sweet potatoes, basmati rice, jasmine rice, oats, and quinoa. These are starches from whole foods. These are foods that contain all the vitamins, minerals, amino acids. You don't need any more supplements. You'd make this the majority of your dish. Think about, and I know this is a novel concept, but think about your sweet potato being like your steak, being the main portion of your dish. You need starch to feel healthy. You need starch to feel full. Now, did you know that potatoes have all the nutrition human beings need? And I'm being very, very serious. You could live exclusively on potatoes. And there are stories of people who have lived on potatoes for an entire year. And you can look up, I think, the SpudFit guy, and you just go Google SpudFit, and he lived literally on potatoes, different types of potatoes, sweet potatoes, for an entire year. And he just put some condiments, like that's all he lived on. And he lost something like 75 pounds. So potatoes have all the nutrition that human beings need. It's just that we've been brainwashed out of thinking that the starch should be the main part of our plate. So we want to think about eating lower on the food chain, eating foods that have more fiber. This helps us to fill up our stomach, to feel full. It gives us a lot of nutrition. So you think about even eating at a lower level, just even monetary. This is a much less expensive, much more simple and humble way of consuming food, but it's also an incredibly satisfying one. I remember when I finally got it that I didn't have to eat low carb, even low carb vegan, and could have starches, and it's like this light bulb went off. I really enjoyed potatoes for months and months and months before I got tired of them. And my body was finally satisfied. My adrenal exhaustion went away, and I thought, my goodness, this is what I've been depriving myself of. And yet, these are the foods that will keep you healthy and trim. Even when I was favoring foods like tofu or tempeh, those foods actually are fairly high fat and they don't have the satiety factor. So I was always hungry. So these are the highest and best foods for human nutrition. And of course, vegetables and fruits, with favoring, if you're trying to let go of some weight, favoring the vegetables over the fruits, but vegetables, fruits, but starches should be first. Starches have that kind of low burn rate. They keep you full for a while, and you don't need to keep eating throughout the day. So if you just ate if you ate zucchini or non-starchy vegetables, you kind of have to just keep eating the whole day. These keep you full and satisfied. In fact, in China, the translation of the morning greeting is, "Have you had your rice today?" And it's really silly that we are willing to let these forego these delicious starches because they contain fiber, B vitamins, minerals, magnesium, potassium. We need all of this nutrition, and to forego it by embracing low carbohydrate foods, which are more meats, high protein, even if it's vegan protein, we're going to end up eating foods that don't really satisfy us and don't have the nutritional profile that we really need. With these foods, embracing the starches, we don't need supplements. We can have a very simple and satisfying existence. Put your money and put your focus into getting the food right. So your brain uses glucose. So just think about cognitive function and getting all of the energy to your brain. And in fact, your red blood cells preferentially use glucose. Think about how important that is, because your blood cells carry all that oxygen. So your body is converting glycogen all day long for calories that you've stored up from eating starch. When you eat it, it gets converted to glycogen, and then your body, keeps releasing that glycogen for energy throughout the day. So once again, talking about starch, if you have a real food in your hand or you're looking at a real food, that is what we're talking about. We're not talking about a processed food. So starch comes from potatoes, from rice, and that could be jasmine rice, basmati rice, it could be brown rice, it could be long grain, short grain. It comes from barley, oats, pasta, bean burritos, so many wonderful things. So far we've talked about two things. The first one is the fat you eat is the fat you wear. The second one is that good health, being beautiful, being healthy, having a very high vibration, comes from eating starches. And the third point is it's impossible to be deficient in protein if you get enough calories. It is seriously impossible. And who do you know who does not get enough calories in this country? So most people in the United States are not suffering from deficiency. They're suffering from excess. What our bodies need more than anything else is glucose. But what food companies need more than anything else is to sell you on the idea that you need high protein. So you'll get some protein powders, or buy more chicken, or buy more eggs. And so they get the money, but you are going to imperil your health as a result. So high protein foods, and this is something, remember, this is just an introduction, you guys. So this is just a really quick kind of whirlwind tour of all of this. We're going to talk about all the science. We're going to go through this slowly. But to give you the overview, high protein foods cause osteoporosis, and they sort of shorten the life of your kidneys. So while animal protein causes more damage than plant protein, even excess plant-based protein is not optimal for the liver or the kidneys. So Can you get enough protein? You guys, all you need in a day is about 40 to 50 grams of protein. And you can get 10 grams of protein in 2 cups of brown rice. You can get 16 grams of protein in 2 cups of quinoa. And you can get 15 grams of protein in 1 cup of chickpeas. It turns out that legumes and beans, these have an incredibly high nutritional profile. So high protein animal diets. Now this will shock you, you guys, and this is the kind of information that will blow you away that we're going to be covering in the class, right? So high protein animal diets very likely switch on tumor producing genes. This was shown in the China study by T. Colin Campbell. Now sidebar, it was about casein specifically. So we may not have the proof in other foods, other animal protein, but kind of put logic to it. I mean, if this could have the possibility of switching on protein, basically what they did is they did a high protein diet and they were able to turn the cancer growth on with a 20% protein diet from animal protein, casein specifically, which comes from milk. When they reduced the amount, and it was only 5% of the total diet, then the tumor-producing genes went completely off. And so then they repeated it. And when they turned the 20%, the tumor production came on. And when they reduced it again, it went down. So this was done in the China study, and it was really revealing. It's made me think a lot, like, why have we been so obsessed about getting protein? It's because we've been sold a bill of goods like, hey, we want you to buy our product. And so let's convince you that high protein is really necessary. But it was never necessary. If you look how people grew in civilizations over the past 10,000 years, it was mostly on barley, potatoes. These were the major portions of the plate. It was only after the Industrial Revolution, getting so good at producing agriculture, raising animals and so forth, that we were convinced that somehow all of a sudden this protein was so important. But you guys, it's just done us a lot of harm and it's not raising our vibration. So join me for the knowledge. Even if you think, oh my gosh, I could never change to this type of plan. Change might come slowly, but you have to have the knowledge. So come to this class to get the knowledge and then allow change to go a little bit over time. I've had to change a little bit over time. I just try to change a little bit. I gave up the olive oil, a little bit, gave up the coconut oil, a little bit, and changed and changed and changed and just felt so much better over time. So, your age, your chronological age might change, but you can do something about your biological age. But don't be duped by these health gurus and the false information that's out there. You have an opportunity to cut through this. And what about vibration? Because I've promised you it's a high vibe class. So we're constantly in training frequencies, and we're a result of all the frequencies around us and the frequencies that we're taking in. And so food is part of that frequency. So chicken and beef are at a pretty low frequency, you guys, and it's very likely that plant-based food is at a much higher frequency. And we know that green leafy vegetables are at about 70 to 90 hertz. And of course, you guys all know about essential oils are at about 70 to 500 hertz. So the more we take in these foods, the plant-based foods, we entrain that vibration into our system, and we become a much more clear channel for taking in the coherent vibrations, like from the genius, like from essential oils. Energy, as you can imagine, just moves through your being much more easily for many, many reasons. Just taking in high vibrational foods and not taking in sort of, food that's resonating at a frequency of 2 hertz compared to 500 hertz. But also just lower fat foods help you to have more circulation in your being. So with the class, and you can come to tomorrow night's class, and we'll be expounding on what we talked about today, and we'll be going through it very similar information. But when you come to the 4-part class, you will receive the following. We're going to do a complete shopping list, recipes, easy ways to simplify meals. You guys, I can make a meal in about 15 minutes, and my Instant Pot has made all the difference. I'm going to share that information with you, and I'm going to share the science behind the information, because if you don't really get the science, you guys, and you don't really kind of get unconfused, it's really hard to move forward with clarity, and that's what I'm going to give to you in the class. We'll explore in the class fun facts like these. Did you know that the FDA will not let the industry, the food industry, call eggs healthy, safe, or nutritious? And we'll get into why, because they contain so much cholesterol per egg. Yet still, quote unquote, health gurus like Mark Hyman are out there telling people that eggs are healthy. We're going to cut through that. I think the only word I can use is crap. And it's really sad, because that's why, having worked with you guys day in and day out, knowing you guys telling me about type 2 diabetes, Parkinson's, cancer, I can't in good conscience let those quote unquote health gurus be out there telling you destructive information without giving you something to really understand what the truth is, and some tools to understand how to look up the truth yourself and to become unconfused. Did you know that oils, even olive oil, may damage the lining of our blood vessels and decrease healthy blood flow? So coconut oil, olive oil, avocado oil, you guys, these oils are not necessary. They're not health promoting, and I'm going to show how they even impair the circulation going to your eyes, the microcirculation. Did you know that it's much more that fats contribute significantly to the development of type 2 diabetes more than starches or carbohydrates ever could? And that's something that's shocking to people. But people who are on a ketogenic diet, or they're on a paleo diet for their type 2 diabetes, you guys, I go absolutely bananas, because I feel for these people. They're not doing things that are supporting their health, and they're listening to so-called health gurus. So if we really want to get into the information, when you understand that starches make you healthy, but a rich Western diet filled with oils and fats and different types of meat and dairy, these are the things that cause diabetes. Diabetes is a disease of rich food, of overeating rich food, especially fatty food, and that's what causes the damage, not not starches, not your potatoes and things like that. And a lot of people don't know that, and that's really important to know. So are you ready to have some high vibe health? Are you ready to have super amazing amounts of energy, maybe more than you've had in years? Are you ready to increase your vibrational frequency and take in more photonic energy and get a lot more out of biofeedback and be able to share that with people that you're giving biofeedback to? See, if we give people this information and we do our genius sessions, you're going to change lives, and you're going to be blown away by the effect you can have in helping other people. And that's what we're doing in this 4-part class. And then we're going to be taking this core information and springboarding it into our year-long course. So you'll get the complete shopping list, the recipes, daily inspirations, affirmations, recipes, lifestyle recommendations. I will be answering questions live tomorrow about the course and going through this information. And then we start on the 27th, Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. We will have a private Facebook group to share your experiences, exchange recipes, be inspired by others. If you have some weight that you want to release, this is a very natural program for weight release, and you'd be surprised how easily the weight can fall off and how much more you'll feel inspired to exercise and do movement, because when your cardiovascular system isn't weighed down by dairy or meat or eggs or oil, you feel ready to go out and your body says, hey, now I can exercise safely. So this information is also core to all of the classes coming in our year-long Natural Biofeedback Practitioner course. And why? Why is this key? We had to do this first in order to really go on, because I'm going to show you in the classes how this way of eating a starch-centered food plan can really help people to heal, like get through their chronic pain, their multiple sclerosis, their osteoarthritis, their diabetes type 2, their diseases caused by environmental toxicity like Parkinson's. Because you guys, the biggest source of toxicity is eating animals and dairy. Those toxins, which we'll learn, accumulate up the food chain. And when you eat lower on the food chain, you're exposing your body to less toxins and also fewer infections. It will help people to heal being overweight. It will help them to heal gallstones. It will help them with general chronic pain that they have, fatigue, and of course, cancer. Oh my God, we're going to show the connection of cancer to this, this way of eating will really make you bulletproof from getting cancers. And we'll talk about why. And it's really good for helping you to heal from chronic viruses, because having a lot of starch in your body helps you to raise your immune system. So join me on Thursday to get some more information and to get your questions answered. And then please register below if you're ready to take the next step, and join me on March 27th at 5 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Eastern. And then it will go for 4 sessions after that. And there is a panel, which is our High Vibe Nutrition panel, which is a testing panel you can use with your Genius. Please join me. Please sign up at the link below. And thanks so much, you guys. Hope to see you there.